Hey guys, tonight we step into a world utterly alien to anything you've ever known. Imagine standing on a vast, frozen steppe beneath a sky blazing with unfamiliar constellations. It's cold, bone-deep, breath-catching cold. Ice sheets stretch out infinitely, their white-blue edges glinting faintly under the starlight, crackling softly as they shift and breathe. The air is sharp, biting your skin as you pull your thick fur cloak tighter around your shoulders. And it's quiet, profoundly quiet, the kind of silence that rings in your ears. Welcome to life 20,000 years ago, during the last glacial maximum. Tonight, you'll experience humanity at its smallest, most humble scale. And I have to warn you, you probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. That small click sends a big signal to the algorithm. That long-form, serious educational content still matters. And to me, it's an incredibly meaningful show of support. Thank you so much for helping keep this channel going strong. Also, let me know in the comments where in the world you're watching from, and your local time. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The steppe you're standing on stretches endlessly before you, flat and empty, with low hills dusted lightly by snow in the distance. It's a world defined not by borders or cities, but by raw elements. Ice, wind, stone, and sky. You're one tiny human, part of an equally tiny family band of 20 or 30 individuals. In fact, the entire global population at this time hovers around just 2 million people, scattered thinly across the face of an enormous planet. Your group is your universe, your lifeline. Outside this tiny circle of kinship, humanity might as well not exist. Your mind is unlike ours today. It isn't a repository of isolated facts, but a living library of landscapes and seasons. You know intimately every rock and boulder, every stream and marsh within hundreds of kilometers. You've mapped mentally the seasonal paths of migrating herds, the hidden dens of wolves, and the sheltered groves of edible berries. You know precisely when and where mushrooms push through thawing earth, and which roots to dig from beneath the snowpack. Your intelligence is fluid, adaptable, connected profoundly to this frigid natural world. Life here is a delicate dance requiring enormous skill. Let's imagine you're preparing for a hunt tomorrow. You crouch in your small shelter, firelight flickering across your face as you carefully nap a spear point from a piece of dark flint, striking off thin flakes of stone until it's razor sharp. A single misstrike means hours of wasted effort, and you can't afford that kind of mistake. Nearby, one of your companions stitches together tailored clothing made from carefully prepared hides, using a needle carved from bone and sinew thread. Essential gear in a climate where a single gap in your clothing could spell frostbite or worse. This isn't a primitive existence, despite what many assume. It's an astonishingly sophisticated adaptation to a brutally unforgiving environment. Everything you touch, from spear points to stitching needles, requires precise craftsmanship and detailed understanding. And survival depends entirely on a deep, collective knowledge passed down orally through countless generations. Your social life is woven tightly into this group dynamic. Survival isn't an individual effort, it's profoundly communal. Food gathered by one belongs to everyone. Children don't have just parents, they have an entire extended family of caregivers. There's no chief barking orders, no priest invoking higher powers. You don't build permanent structures or monuments. Your security isn't in wood or stone, but in the invisible, unbreakable bonds of kinship and trust. Your world is fluid, constantly moving, adjusting subtly to the rhythms of nature. And time, for you, isn't linear. There's no past stretching backward into history, no vision of the future racing forward into infinite progress. Your sense of time is cyclical, seasonal. Each winter is like every winter before, each spring a familiar renewal. The elders in your group tell stories of hunts past, recounted vividly around campfires. But these aren't lessons in history. They're timeless guidelines for survival. Their wisdom is not just advice, but prophecy. History for you circles endlessly. As you drift into sleep beneath a thick blanket of furs, the muted sounds of the night around you, 1,000 tiny details of the world hum gently in your consciousness. You understand, perhaps better than anyone who has ever lived, exactly how fragile life is, and how wondrous. This life is about balancing perfectly on the knife's edge of existence. It's an existence sustained by skill, luck, and an unbroken chain of shared knowledge stretching back generations. Historians still argue whether these Ice Age hunter-gatherers considered their lives harsh or fulfilling. But if we examine the archaeological record, the care taken in crafting their few possessions, their elaborate cave paintings, and the complex social bonds evident even in sparse burial sites, it seems clear they experienced a rich, meaningful existence. You are as fully human, intelligent, and capable as anyone alive today, just adapted to an utterly different set of rules. And tonight, in the profound silence of the ice, lying awake under a dome of glittering stars, you feel no great urge to change this way of life. Progress doesn't mean much here. There's no need to alter the rhythm of existence, only to continue it. The wind whispers softly across your encampment, rustling dried grasses and scattering fine particles of snow. Tomorrow, you'll rise early to follow animal tracks etched clearly in the frosted earth. Your purpose is simple and clear. Move harmoniously within the world you inhabit, ensuring the next season is like the last. But here's a secret you'll carry with you as we move deeper into tonight's journey. This timeless existence, this unending cycle of migration and survival, is on the brink of something new. You don't know it yet, but the ice around you is slowly beginning to shift. Temperatures are creeping upward, glaciers groan as they thaw, and distant rivers begin to swell with meltwater. You can't possibly imagine it yet, but everything you understand, everything humanity has understood for hundreds of thousands of years, is about to be challenged in ways you can't yet imagine. But for now, tonight, rest beneath this sky thick with unfamiliar constellations. Feel the warmth of your small band of companions gathered close around you. Listen to the soft breathing of the sleeping children, the occasional crackle of the dying fire, and the distant, haunting cry of wolves. Everything you need to know, you've learned from this world of endless wandering, and tonight, that's enough. Tomorrow, the world might shift just a fraction, bringing you and humanity itself a step closer to something truly unprecedented. But that's tomorrow's concern. Tonight, simply rest. The logic of your nomadic existence is crystal clear. You follow a simple yet profoundly elegant economic calculation, an ancient equation that has sustained humans for 99% of our time on Earth. It's efficient, sustainable, and in many ways remarkably gentle. When a berry patch is stripped bare or a herd moves onward, you pack up your small bundle of belongings and quietly move along, leaving the land to recover and replenish behind you. The steppe breathes, animals return, berries regrow, and so the cycle continues unbroken, season after season. There's a certain beauty in traveling lightly through life. Your possessions aren't treasures accumulated to signal status or success. They're tools, purely functional and carefully chosen. Everything you own, you carry with you. A finely made flint scraper, perhaps a pouch of dried meat, a small carved amulet hanging from your neck, worn smooth from generations of fingers. The very idea of piling up more stuff is absurd to you. After all, every additional item would only be another burden to carry, another weight on your already aching shoulders as you trudge over countless kilometers of wilderness. Your spiritual world is equally portable and elegant. No grand temples or towering monuments dot this landscape. Instead, your spirituality is embedded directly into the natural world around you. Every oddly shaped rock, twisted tree trunk, and shifting herd of animals embodies its own unique spirit, whispering quietly to those who know how to listen. These aren't distant gods demanding offerings. They're present, immediate companions in daily survival. Rituals aren't rigid ceremonies. They're brief, personal gestures of gratitude and respect performed right where you stand. A sprinkling of water offered to a stream, whispered thanks to an animal taken in the hunt, a gentle touch to a familiar stone marking a well-trodden path. It's animism in its purest form, weaving seamlessly into the rhythm of your days. And that rhythm, that nomadic pulse of life, has been humming quietly along for more than 250,000 years. Imagine that. The vast majority of our collective human experience is exactly like this. Your body, your instincts, and your deepest psychological drives have all been shaped and molded by this ancient, wandering existence. Even today, buried deep beneath modern life's complexities, there's an instinctive longing within many of us for exactly what you're experiencing right now. Simplicity, movement, and a deep connection to the earth. But don't romanticize it too much. Nomadic life is far from carefree. It demands relentless effort, constant vigilance, and a remarkable resilience to hardship. Sure, waking up each day without emails, deadlines, or social media sounds lovely. Until you remember your daily to-do list includes avoiding starvation, hypothermia, and becoming lunch for a saber-toothed cat. Life expectancy isn't great, and your retirement plan consists mostly of hoping someone younger and stronger will feed you once your knees inevitably give out. Glamorous, it is not. Still, the trade-off has its perks. Stress and anxiety, as we understand them today, are different animals entirely. Your worries are immediate and tangible. Will there be food tomorrow? Can we reach shelter before the storm hits? There's no existential dread, no haunting sense of emptiness. You're far too busy simply existing. Your sleep is deep and untroubled, aside from the occasional unsettling dream about becoming saber-tooth chow. You know who you are, what your purpose is, and precisely where you fit into the world around you. Yet quietly, so quietly you haven't noticed it yet, change is beginning. It's subtle at first, a whisper on the wind, a faint scent of something different in the air. The ice is retreating, creeping slowly back towards the distant poles. The sky no longer feels quite as bitterly cold as it did in your childhood. Plants, once hidden beneath endless sheets of ice, timidly begin poking upward through thawing earth. You shrug it off initially. Weather varies from season to season after all. But deep inside, something is beginning to shift. You see, for countless generations, your people have understood the land as fixed and unchanging. Reliable, predictable patterns of animal migration, plant growth, and seasonal weather form the very backbone of your nomadic lifestyle. You move through the landscape precisely because you trust it to behave in familiar, cyclical ways. But now, the edges of that trust are beginning to fray. The land itself seems to be quietly questioning your ancient pact. And then, one day, you stumble across something truly remarkable. Your group pauses beside a grove of hardy trees, their gnarled branches just starting to sprout tender green leaves in the warmth of a new spring. You look around and realize this area has changed dramatically from just a few years ago. Rivers swollen with meltwater carve new paths across the land. Small valleys, once barren and windswept, now flourish with grasses and flowers you've never seen before. Herds of animals, following the shifting landscape, linger longer, unwilling to migrate onward. It dawns on you, moving constantly might no longer be as necessary as before. Why chase after game when the game itself seems content to stay put? It's almost as though the landscape itself is gently whispering to you, "Stay." You shake your head, dismissing the strange thought. Staying put? Nonsense. You're a wanderer. Your parents were wanderers, their parents before them, stretching back through countless generations. It's worked just fine. Change is a risky game, and the stakes here are survival itself. And yet, the temptation lingers. In the meantime, life carries on. Your small family band moves from place to place, following familiar patterns, pausing briefly to pick berries, gather nuts, or hunt gazelle. You sleep soundly beneath endless starry skies, your mind at ease because the pattern is known, understood, comforting. And yet you can't entirely silence the quiet voice whispering at the edges of your consciousness, tempting you with the thought of something new. Historians still argue whether the earliest stirrings of sedentism, this temptation to settle down, began out of opportunity or necessity. Some suggest it was the bounty of a warming world offering irresistible abundance. Others believe it was environmental stress, the pressure of dwindling resources pushing nomads to cling desperately to the few areas still able to sustain life. Perhaps in truth, it was a complex dance between both. You, of course, don't know any of this yet, but you can sense instinctively that your world is shifting, subtly yet irrevocably. Before long, some brave, or perhaps foolhardy group will give in to that whisper, building the first tentative shelters and lingering a little longer than before. That decision, seemingly small and inconsequential, will set in motion an extraordinary series of events, cascading forward to completely reshape human destiny. But tonight, under a sky filled with those endless, unfamiliar stars, wrapped securely in your cloak of furs, you breathe deeply. Tomorrow will come soon enough, bringing with it a million tiny decisions and uncertainties. Yet tonight, you're still blissfully unaware of the monumental shifts already gathering strength around you. For now, simply rest, knowing your nomadic logic is sound, ancient, and comforting. Your world makes perfect sense, at least for a little while longer. It begins gently at first, a slow, subtle thaw, so gradual you hardly notice. You wake one morning to the steady drip of meltwater cascading off the edge of a glacier. forming rivulets carving gently into once frozen earth. Each year, those trickles grow stronger, wider, more insistent. Ice sheets recede inch by cautious inch, revealing landscapes no human eye has glimpsed for tens of thousands of years. And in that retreating ice, the world is quietly reborn. This thaw marks the twilight of your endless wandering, though you're still oblivious to just how profound this change will be. You continue your familiar patterns, hunting, gathering, moving, but the land beneath your feet is becoming something new entirely. Vast expanses of frozen tundra transform slowly into lush grasslands. Bare, wind-swept plains bloom suddenly with patches of wildflowers, their colors startlingly vibrant against the gray-brown soil. Rivers swell with melting ice, carving channels into the landscape, leaving fertile silt in their wake. Within a few short generations, the land that will someday be called the Fertile Crescent bursts to life with unimaginable bounty. And you, dear wanderer, find yourself standing in what historians have poetically dubbed a hunter-gatherer paradise. Hill-sized, once barren, now burst with wild pistachio and oak forests. Grasses, the ancestors of wheat and barley, flourish thickly, rippling golden and green waves beneath gentle breezes. Marshes and lakes swell with life. Flocks of waterfowl so dense they darken the skies as they rise and fall. Herds of deer graze quietly at the edges of forests. Fish shimmer beneath the clear, rushing waters of swollen rivers. It's almost absurdly generous, this landscape, a mosaic of habitats nestled cheek by jowl. In the Levant, a short stroll from your shelter can carry you from a marsh teeming with ducks, cranes, and turtles, to woodlands filled with acorns and olives, then up into hillsides thick with wild cereals and legumes. In such abundance, your nomadic instincts whisper cautiously that perhaps, for once, you don't need to move on. Why leave a place where everything you could ever want is offered freely and abundantly? This bounty begins to subtly challenge the logic you've always known. Your whole life, and the lives of countless ancestors stretching behind you, was built around perpetual movement. Now, though, the landscape itself gently invites you to stay. After generations of chasing resources across harsh terrains, you're now chasing nothing at all. Everything is here, within easy reach. Your nomadic logic slowly bends, just slightly, under the weight of this unprecedented luxury. One evening, following game trails beside a vast freshwater lake, you stumble across something that stops you in your tracks. A cluster of strange structures huddled by the water's edge. Approaching cautiously, your curiosity piqued. You realize these are not temporary shelters built of skins and sticks, but something entirely new. Oval huts built solidly from branches and brush, with hearths carefully constructed for repeated use, their stones blackened by countless fires. People live here, not just for a few days, but continuously. Welcome to Ohalo II, a name you won't know, but one archaeologists will someday speak with reverence. You're witnessing something groundbreaking, one of humanity's earliest experiments with sedentism, happening right before your eyes. You hesitate at the settlement's edge, intrigued yet wary. Why would anyone tie themselves permanently to one spot? Isn't freedom the very heart of your way of life? You're momentarily distracted by a savory aroma drifting from within the small village. Smoke rising lazily from cooking fires, laughter rippling warmly through the air. Curiosity pulls you forward. Stepping closer, you peer into the simple, sturdy huts. There's order here, a sense of permanence. Nearby, a small group gathers around a large, flat stone, busily grinding wild barley grains with smooth, rounded rocks. Beside them, baskets overflow with the fruits of their labor: almonds, grapes, olives, wild wheat, an astonishing variety of gathered food. Later, archaeologists will marvel at what they've uncovered here. Over 150,000 perfectly preserved seeds and fruits from more than 140 distinct plant species, meticulously harvested, processed, and stored. This isn't casual foraging. It's systematic, almost agricultural. This shocks you. Your entire life has revolved around opportunistic, mobile gathering. Yet here, they're planning, deliberately gathering and processing far more food than they need in a single day or week, storing it carefully for leaner times. It's an astonishing leap of cognitive complexity. You realize, with a slow sense of wonder, that these people are stepping into a new kind of thinking altogether. You sit quietly, watching as they use flint sickles with small, sharp blades embedded precisely into wooden handles. Blades polished smooth from cutting endless handfuls of tough grasses. Nearby, heavy stone querns grind grain into flour. This meticulous effort and deliberate planning shift something deep within you. You're witnessing the first tentative steps toward cultivation, a farmer's mentality emerging even without formal agriculture. And there's another curiosity, one you notice without fully understanding its importance yet. Between the neatly harvested grains sprout tiny, aggressive plants, species you recognize as weeds. Here's a quirky fact historians still puzzle over. These weeds hint at the earliest human disturbance of wild plant habitats. The people of Ohalo II were inadvertently cultivating these plants by clearing away competition, creating fields without fully intending to. Historians still argue whether this experiment was driven purely by abundance or by pressure. Perhaps Ohalo's inhabitants simply loved their lakeside paradise too dearly to leave. Or perhaps mild changes in climate had nudged nomadic bands into staying put just a bit longer than before, turning a temporary camp into something approaching a permanent home. Whatever the initial spark, the result was revolutionary, changing humanity's direction in ways these first villagers couldn't possibly fathom. You linger by Ohalo II's lakeside, feeling strangely uncertain. Part of you yearns to remain here, to taste the comfort of staying in one place, to build something permanent. But another part hesitates, afraid of losing the freedom that defines your entire way of life. Sedentism feels risky, binding, unfamiliar, and yet undeniably tempting. Tonight, beneath stars reflected on the tranquil lake, your head spins with possibilities. You know you must soon decide. Move onward, clinging fiercely to tradition, or experiment boldly, following these villagers into an uncertain future. You look around at the huts, the cooking fires, the baskets brimming with gathered seeds and fruits, and feel something entirely new stirring within you. A whisper of curiosity, the gentle allure of permanence. Sleep comes slowly tonight, troubled by visions of this tantalizingly unfamiliar way of life. But for now, as the lake laps gently at its shore, let tomorrow's decisions wait. Rest well, dreamer. Your world is on the edge of something remarkable. Standing by the shores of your lakeside paradise, you find yourself drifting deeper into the strange rhythm of life at Ohalo II. Morning breaks gently, the sun casting golden fingers of light across the lake's surface. Children play quietly at the water's edge, their laughter echoing softly, mingling with bird song and the murmur of villagers beginning their daily tasks. This isn't a temporary camp. It's home. Here, generations are born, grow old, and quietly pass beneath the same familiar sky. You explore further, stepping lightly through this unusual village. Around you are 6 simple yet sturdy brush huts, their oval shapes nestled harmoniously into the landscape. Each hut is crafted meticulously, branches woven tight against the elements. Inside, you notice hearths blackened by repeated fires, well tended and deliberately placed. Nearby, a distinct area has been set aside, a refuse heap marking a designated place for waste, a surprising early nod to sanitation. This simple organization speaks volumes. These villagers aren't just staying put. They're creating order and purpose in their surroundings. Yet what captures your attention even more deeply is the extraordinary abundance of plant life being methodically gathered, processed, and stored. Beside the huts, large woven baskets overflow with seeds, nuts, and fruits gathered carefully from nearby hillsides and forests. Later, archaeologists will marvel at this astonishing bounty. Over 150,000 seeds and fruits meticulously harvested from more than 140 different plant species. Wild almonds, olives, grapes, barley, and wheat. These people aren't casually plucking at plants as they wander. They're systematically managing their environment. This is the first faint whisper of agriculture, and you're standing right in the middle of it. You're struck by the precision of their tools. Near one hut, a villager crouches, expertly grinding grains between 2 heavy stones, querns, their surfaces worn smooth from countless hours of effort. Beside her lies a pile of flour, fine and pale, ready for cooking. Nearby, a man carefully replaces small, razor-sharp flint blades into wooden sickle handles, their edges polished from harvesting grasses. You can't help but appreciate the sheer skill required to create these tools. Each flint blade must be delicately crafted and securely embedded, each quernstone painstakingly chosen and shaped. This isn't merely survival, it's artistry. This cognitive shift is profound. Your entire life has been one of immediate need. Hunt, gather, consume, and move on. But here at Ohalo II, villagers think differently. They're actively planning, anticipating future harvests, deliberately storing excess food for leaner times. They're developing a sense of permanence, reshaping their lives around a future they believe they can control. The very essence of their thought process has changed from reacting to nature's whims to shaping nature itself. And there's an even stranger clue hidden among the harvested plants. Tiny, stubborn species, weeds thriving between carefully gathered grains. Without realizing it, the villagers have disturbed the natural plant communities, creating spaces perfect for these aggressive little intruders. Scholars today still debate whether this was a purely accidental act or an early subconscious effort at cultivation. But whatever the intention, the result is clear. Humans have begun reshaping plant communities, nudging them subtly toward domestication. Watching the villagers work, you notice the social bonds tightening around their collective labor. Food storage changes relationships profoundly. For nomads, everyone gathers their own food. Your success depends directly on your own effort. But here, communal storage means your survival is intertwined with the efforts of everyone around you. Trust, cooperation, and social cohesion deepen. Family lines blur into something broader, something more communal. Perhaps you wonder, this is the birth of something resembling society itself. This remarkable site, Ohalo II, reveals humans beginning to experiment with permanence thousands of years earlier than archaeologists previously imagined possible. Yet, why exactly did these villagers choose to anchor themselves so firmly in place? Historians still argue fiercely over this. Some say climate change gently nudged them into longer stays. Others argue it was the extraordinary local abundance, or perhaps simple human curiosity and innovation. The exact motivation remains unclear, but the outcome speaks loudly enough. Here, nestled beside a tranquil lake, humanity takes its first steps toward something entirely new. Yet, permanence brings risks too. As days blend into months, you notice small tensions arising. Who decides when and how to gather plants? Who chooses where huts are built, or how food is distributed? You sense an early subtle form of social friction appearing. Life in larger groups requires negotiation, compromise, and sometimes arguments. Staying put means resolving conflicts directly. No longer can your family simply pick up and leave when disputes arise. You wander toward the lakeshore, reflecting quietly. The water is mirror smooth, reflecting clouds drifting lazily overhead. Birds wheel and circle, their cries echoing gently through the valley. It's beautiful, almost unbearably so. And yet, a small ache of nostalgia tugs at your heart. The freedom of wandering, the thrill of the unknown horizon, still calls softly from beyond these comfortable huts. But something else stirs within you now. Curiosity, excitement, the whispering promise of something entirely new. For all the challenges, you can't deny the potential here. You see children playing, elderly villagers smiling as they rest, their faces deeply lined with years spent watching seasons turn gently from this one perfect place. Perhaps humans were never meant to wander forever. Perhaps roots are inevitable. Still, tonight, beside your small fire, the weight of decision presses quietly upon you. Tomorrow you'll decide. Stay, embracing this enticing but unfamiliar permanence. Or leave, returning to the open horizon and endless sky. Both paths carry risks. Both offer rewards. You're balanced delicately between tradition and transformation, poised to step forward into a future that remains frustratingly uncertain. The stars emerge gently, reflections shimmering upon the lake's dark surface, the air fragrant with wood smoke and roasting seeds. Beneath the beauty, you sense something deeper, the quiet pulse of history, whispering softly at the edge of awareness. Tonight, you stand precisely at the crossroads between everything humanity has known and everything it is about to become. Sleep gently tonight, traveler. Tomorrow's decision awaits patiently, carrying with it the weight of countless generations yet unborn. For now, simply rest, letting dreams weave gently around your heart, offering whispers of what might soon come to be. You wake gently to the soft murmur of voices, laughter drifting faintly through cool morning air. Yet this isn't the simple brush hut village of Ohalo II. Generations have passed quietly, nudging humanity further along the road toward permanence. You're now standing at the edge of something altogether larger, more vibrant, something we call today the Natufian world. Stretched before you lies Ain Malaha, one of humanity's earliest towns, nestled comfortably in the lush embrace of a broad valley. It's a community entirely different from any you've encountered so far, far more ambitious, more substantial. Here, Your nomadic instincts, once so deeply embedded, suddenly feel out of place. Your feet itch slightly, longing for familiar movement, but your curiosity pushes you gently forward. The Natufian village buzzes with life, housing several hundred people in dozens of sturdy, semi-subterranean homes. Each structure is beautifully engineered, their stone foundations embedded firmly in the earth, topped by walls of mud and wood, rounded roofs neatly woven from branches and grass. These aren't temporary shelters. These are homes built to withstand generations. You can feel permanence everywhere, in the worn pathways winding gracefully between homes, in the tiny gardens carefully tended at their edges, and in the laughing children running easily from doorway to doorway. Historians still argue whether this early sedentism came naturally from abundance, or if changing climates nudged communities into settling more permanently. What's clear, though, is that the Natufians embraced this new lifestyle wholeheartedly. Each year, new huts are built, old ones expanded. Gradually, the community sprawls outward, creating something historians will someday recognize as humanity's first true settlements. But what truly impresses you is their mastery of the land itself. Natufians have refined the skills first glimpsed at Ohalo II, elevating gathering and food processing into something remarkable. In Ain Malaha, massive stone mortars and pestles are everywhere, grinding grain almost industrially, turning wild barley and wheat into nourishing staples. Flint sickles gleam in the sunlight, their exquisitely carved bone handles fitting perfectly into human hands. The craftsmanship displayed in these tools astonishes you. Each is as much an art form as a functional implement, intricately detailed, balanced precisely for comfort and efficiency. You notice how adeptly these Natufians manage their environment. Settlements are intentionally placed at the juncture of multiple ecosystems, forests teeming with acorns and game, marshes abundant with birds, hillsides ripe with grains. They're not yet true farmers, but they're certainly expert landscape managers, subtly reshaping nature's patterns for human advantage. Without realizing it, they've already taken the first irreversible steps toward agriculture. And these subtle shifts in lifestyle have brought inevitable consequences. As your eyes roam the village, you can't help noticing the abundance of children, a clear sign of a growing population. Stable food supplies and settled living provide ideal conditions for families to expand, and suddenly you find yourself facing a surprising new reality: population boom. Gone are the days of small family bands wandering freely. Now, hundreds of lives intertwine tightly, creating new relationships, opportunities, and yes, new conflicts. Moving through Ain Malaha, you pause at a hut's entrance. Peering inside, you see something that stops you cold. A woman carefully preparing food, gently flattening dough on heated stones, filling the air with a warm, comforting aroma. Natufians have discovered bread, wild grain flour mixed with water, shaped and baked into nourishing, portable loaves. It's an extraordinary leap in culinary technology, transforming tough, indigestible seeds into soft, sustaining food. As your stomach rumbles, you smile faintly, recognizing instinctively that this simple invention will shape human diets and societies for millennia to come. The culinary adventures don't end there. Another hut catches your attention. Villagers gathered around large stone bowls filled with a sweet, fermented liquid. Natufians have stumbled upon another marvel: beer. Perhaps initially an accidental discovery, wild grains fermenting in water, This beverage soon became central to ritual feasts, gatherings, and celebrations. You grin knowingly. Humans never really change, do they? Few things unite people like sharing a drink. But life here isn't merely about sustenance. It has blossomed into creativity, identity, and even status. Around the village, you see beautifully carved figures, animals rendered lovingly from bone, stone, and antler. Intricate jewelry hangs from necks, wrists, and hair. Shells from distant seas, bones delicately carved into beads. These adornments signal personal identity, beauty, perhaps even social standing. Your people once wore only what was useful. Now adornment and decoration become increasingly important, symbols of belonging and distinction. Yet there's another, deeper shift underway. As you wander to the village edge, you see a small crowd gathered quietly near a shallow pit, heads bowed respectfully. Curious, you approach and realize it's a burial. A young woman is being gently placed into the earth, surrounded lovingly by personal items, small carved figurines, beautiful beads, and an elaborate headdress crafted carefully from shells. Natufians no longer leave their dead behind as they wander. Instead, they bury them intentionally close, beneath their homes or in communal areas, linking ancestors directly to the land. Burial practices grow more elaborate, hinting subtly at emerging hierarchies. Some individuals are clearly given special attention, perhaps shamans, elders, or community leaders. It's the first quiet whisper of social stratification, the earliest hints of leadership and inequality. Historians still argue whether Natufian burials reflect true social hierarchies or simply individual status earned through personal skill and wisdom. But standing quietly by this graveside, you sense the truth might be a bit of both. Communities this large inevitably require some level of leadership, authority, or spiritual guidance. Someone trusted to mediate disputes, distribute resources, and organize communal efforts. The sun dips lower, shadows lengthening gently across Ain Malaha. The village settles quietly into twilight rhythms, children called in from play, adults finishing tasks, gathering around hearths to share food, drink, stories, and laughter. You linger, breathing deeply the fragrance of cooking bread, roasting meats, and the gentle warmth of companionship. You realize humanity has quietly, irreversibly crossed a threshold. The comforts of village life, stability, and abundant food have reshaped your very nature. Yet you can't help feeling a tiny pang of nostalgia, an ache deep inside for simpler times, wide open spaces, the freedom of wandering wherever your feet wished. You gaze quietly outward, beyond the village, toward darkening hills and distant horizons. The choice to settle, to build villages like Ain Malaha, brings extraordinary benefits, but also inevitable losses. Your world has grown larger, richer, yet somehow subtly more constrained. Tonight, sleep finds you slowly, caught gently between two worlds, between the nomadic freedom of your ancestors and the comforts of a settled life now spreading steadily across the landscape. Beneath a canopy of stars, softly illuminating Ain Malaha's quiet streets, rest easy, dreamer, knowing your journey, humanity's journey, is only just beginning. You awaken to the faint aroma of something wonderfully familiar, yet curiously new. Bread. Not just the rough flour paste you saw in Ain Malaha, but something warm, soft, golden brown, and intoxicatingly fragrant. Following your nose, you find yourself walking slowly through a bustling Natufian settlement at dawn. Soft voices murmur greetings, children dart playfully between homes, and villagers gather near glowing embers to warm themselves from the morning chill. This world you've entered is becoming increasingly recognizable. It's still prehistoric, yet strangely comforting, familiar in its rhythms and patterns, humanity on the brink of something remarkable. As you approach a gathering place, you see a woman skillfully shaping dough onto heated stones. She works methodically, pressing the sticky mixture flat, flipping it gently as it puffs and browns. The scent floods your senses, rich and nutty, awakening deep-seated feelings of comfort. Historians will later pinpoint this as a pivotal moment in human culinary evolution, the first real bread, made from wild barley and wheat flour, baked intentionally rather than accidentally. You've stumbled upon one of civilization's earliest and most transformative inventions. Bread isn't merely another food, it's a profound innovation. It turns hard-to-digest grains into a storable, nutritious staple. It allows food to be saved and shared, enabling larger, more stable communities. It binds families and neighbors together, breaking communal fasts at sunrise, providing sustenance during harsh winters, fostering gatherings and celebrations. In many ways, bread is the taste of civilization itself, a symbol of home, stability, and security. Yet your senses guide you toward another discovery, equally groundbreaking. Nearby, villagers gather around a large stone basin, dipping bowls into a slightly fizzy golden liquid. You quickly realize you've encountered another Natufian culinary triumph. Beer. Accidental fermentation of grain and water has evolved into deliberate brewing, and now the result bubbles softly in stone mortars, waiting to be shared. You grin slightly. Human beings, it seems, have discovered another universal truth. There's nothing quite like a cold drink after a long day's work. Beyond simple enjoyment, beer holds deep communal significance. It's likely consumed during rituals, festivals, and important community gatherings. Historians still argue whether beer was initially discovered by accident or intentionally brewed as part of ceremonial feasting. Either way, its presence here signals something important. Natufians have moved beyond mere survival, dedicating valuable time and resources to social bonding, leisure, and spiritual ritual. As you watch villagers sipping and laughing, you realize something profound. Life is no longer just about food, shelter, and safety. It's increasingly about identity, creativity, and shared experiences. And with basic survival assured by abundant harvests, you see another human instinct awakening: the desire for beauty, decoration, and individuality. Passing another hut, you admire intricate necklaces hanging from a doorway, shells gathered from distant shores, beads carved meticulously from bone and stone. Beautifully shaped animal figures rest neatly on shelves, small sculptures painstakingly crafted from antler and ivory, each polished lovingly. Personal adornments are now more than practical. They're statements, signals of personality, status, or simply aesthetic pleasure. These objects speak clearly. Life is good enough now to spend precious time on art and beauty. Yet permanence and abundance bring deeper cultural shifts. Wandering toward a quieter corner of the village, you see a small group preparing for a burial. At the center lies an elderly woman, her body gently adorned with ornaments. Delicate seashell bracelets, necklaces of carved bones, feathers arranged artfully beside her. Historians still debate her identity. Was she a shaman, a leader, perhaps simply a beloved elder. Whatever her role, her elaborate burial clearly signals social differentiation, the subtle emergence of leaders or individuals deemed special within the community. Observing quietly, you sense these Natufians developing more structured beliefs about life, death, and the afterlife. They bury their dead within or near homes, ancestors remaining close, part of everyday existence. This ritualistic intimacy with the deceased signals new forms of spirituality, ancestral reverence becoming central to community cohesion. Death is no longer an abandonment of the body in the wild. It's a carefully managed sacred passage intimately tied to place and community identity. Yet for all the profound advancements, permanence carries inevitable shadows. Walking thoughtfully toward the village's outskirts, you notice something unsettling. Nearby, villagers heap waste into piles, bones, shells, discarded plants, drawing insects and scavengers. For the first time, human settlements become ideal breeding grounds for disease. Skeletons from Natufian sites will someday reveal this dark side. Increased dental decay from carbohydrate-rich diets, signs of nutritional stress, and early indicators of infectious diseases thriving in denser, sedentary communities. You notice, too, as you observe hunting parties return from surrounding forests, their catches are changing. Gazelles and larger game grow scarce, replaced gradually by birds, rabbits, fish, smaller prey. Resource depletion quietly emerges, a consequence of larger populations staying in one place. For the first time, humans are exhausting local environments, forcing adaptation, innovation, or conflict. Indeed, tensions subtly ours. From your vantage, you glimpse an argument, a disagreement over distribution of a recent harvest. Who gets the choicest barley or prime fishing spot? Who settles disputes? Skeletal remains from this period hint at occasional violence, blunt force injuries suggesting conflict, interpersonal friction inevitably accompanying larger settlements. Perhaps you wonder quietly, it's these internal pressures, scarce resources, social tensions, that spur humans toward their next remarkable innovation. Boundaries. Simple fences, walls, lines marking territory or rights emerge not primarily to repel outsiders, but to manage internal disputes, demarcate property, maintain social harmony. Natufians unknowingly pioneer concepts central to future societies: property, territory, and even law itself. As night descends gently upon the settlement, you find yourself reflecting quietly. Warm hearth fires flicker softly in doorways. Villagers gather closely to share food, laughter, drink, and stories. You sense clearly a new world unfolding, a life of community, shared ritual, and emerging structure. Yet permanence carries complexity, challenges, inevitable compromises. The price of abundance, stability, and security is surrendering some individual freedom. Your ancestors once wandered freely. Now you are bound gently yet firmly to place, community, and tradition. Beneath stars glittering softly above this ancient village, sleep finds you thoughtfully. You drift gently into dreams of bread baking on heated stones, beer bubbling softly in mortars, voices laughing, whispering secrets of community, belonging, and subtle complexities still to unfold. Your human journey remains unfinished, rich with possibilities, uncertainties, beauty, shadows, and always gently guiding you forward, the irresistible taste of civilization. Sleep now, wanderer. Tomorrow's story awaits patiently. Tonight, the gentle embrace of permanence feels comforting as ever. Yet shadows are beginning to gather at the edges. You sense them subtly, whispering like faint breezes through the village streets, rustling the carefully woven roofs of huts. Abundance and stability have brought astonishing comfort, yet beneath the surface, cracks quietly form. Your Natufian world has become paradise, but paradise rarely comes without costs. Stepping carefully through the bustling settlement, your eyes drift toward refuse piles accumulating at the village's edges. In nomadic life, waste rarely lingered. You simply moved onward. But here, everything stays put, accumulating slowly yet inevitably. Small scavengers scuttle quickly from your steps, insects buzzing busily through discarded seeds, bones, scraps of rotting vegetation. The first signs of sanitation problems quietly surface, something humanity will grapple with repeatedly in the millennia ahead. You pause thoughtfully, realizing that permanent settlements aren't just places of abundance and comfort. They're potential breeding grounds for sickness. Historians still debate how quickly diseases emerged among these early sedentary communities, but skeletons tell clear stories. Teeth riddled with cavities from new carbohydrate-rich diets, bones bearing marks of nutritional stress, subtle evidence of infections thriving in dense populations. Your paradise village, beautiful though it may be, unknowingly fosters conditions ripe for epidemic illness. Yet sanitation isn't your only challenge. Walking slowly toward the village's outskirts, you encounter hunters returning with smaller prey: rabbits, birds, fish. Gazelles, deer, and large game are becoming scarce, driven away or depleted by growing populations constantly harvesting nearby resources. Archaeologists have found clear evidence of this resource shift. Animal bones becoming smaller, fewer, harder to catch. Your ancestors followed game migrations naturally. Now, stationary villages must learn to cope with diminishing local resources. Permanence, for all its comfort, demands constant adaptation, or risks collapse. Watching these hunting parties return, empty-handed or with lean catches, you sense growing frustration. Tensions simmer beneath the settlement's peaceful surface. Who claims dwindling resources? Who decides distribution? Without clearly established rules or authorities, conflicts inevitably arise. Historians still argue whether early Natufian settlements experienced significant violence, but occasional skulls unearthed by archaeologists bear unmistakable marks of blunt force trauma, subtle reminders that human beings have always struggled with managing shared resources peacefully. Reflecting thoughtfully, you realize the greatest threat to your paradise isn't external raiders or wild animals. It's internal, human relationships stretched by new social complexities. Larger settlements inevitably create frictions, power dynamics, inequalities. Your ancestors never dealt with these subtle, insidious problems. They simply moved apart whenever conflicts arose. But here, staying put means dealing directly with disputes. You're learning slowly, painfully, how to live in larger groups. Moving quietly through shadowy pathways, you notice something new. Small fences, simple walls woven from branches or stacked carefully from stones. They aren't built to repel hostile outsiders. Indeed, there's little evidence of widespread warfare in these early settlements. Instead, these walls manage internal tensions, demarcating space clearly. They define property, signal ownership or rights, subtly reducing friction by clarifying who controls which resources. Walls, it seems, aren't merely defenses. They're psychological tools for managing human relationships in complex communities. And so, quietly, subtly, your paradise becomes defined by fences. Yet as boundaries rise, they also impose new limitations. Your ancestors wandered freely, the world theirs to roam. Now, land has ownership. Space has meaning beyond mere shelter. Walls subtly restrict freedom even as they ease tensions, marking the earliest stages of concepts that will eventually become central to civilization. Private property, territory, community boundaries. Yet despite emerging tensions, your Natufian paradise remains astonishingly successful. Indeed, too successful. Population growth quietly outpaces available resources. Without intentionally meaning to, you've trapped yourselves. Too large to wander easily, yet struggling increasingly to sustain permanent settlements. It's a subtle, dangerous balancing act, precariously maintaining a delicate equilibrium. Each harvest slightly leaner, each hunt slightly harder, pressures subtly mount year after year. And then, inevitably, the land itself shifts beneath your feet. You don't notice immediately. Change begins subtly. An unseasonably cool breeze rustling trees, or a quiet, nagging chill lingering through spring mornings. But within decades, this gentle chill escalates suddenly into something terrifying. Climate dramatically cooling once again, plunging your thriving world back into near glacial conditions. Historians will someday call this catastrophic reversal the Younger Dryas, a terrifyingly swift environmental downturn lasting over 1,000 years. In mere generations, forests retreat, wild grains wither, animal herds scatter or disappear altogether. Rivers shrink, lakes evaporate, rains fail to come. Paradise crumbles, leaving behind bleak, struggling settlements. Your carefully built Natufian villages, comfortable, abundant, bustling, now become traps. Without abundant food sources, without secure resources, staying put feels increasingly dangerous. And so begins a desperate human drama. You must quickly decide, cling stubbornly to permanence, hoping conditions improve, or abandon everything and return to nomadic wandering, trusting ancient instincts honed through countless generations. Communities fracture painfully along these lines. Many flee, packs on backs, wandering back into harsh landscapes seeking elusive survival. Others stubbornly remain, too invested in their settled lives, hoping desperately to wait out this catastrophic downturn. You sense clearly that your people now face their first true test. Permanence, once a gentle embrace, becomes an iron grip squeezing relentlessly. Adaptation is no longer optional, it's urgent necessity. Some communities abandon permanence entirely, reverting to nomadic hunting-gathering, traveling leanly through harsh environments, resourcefully surviving. Yet other groups stubbornly remain anchored, innovating desperately, planting seeds deliberately rather than merely gathering wild plants, actively managing scarce resources, fighting fiercely to survive in place. Tonight, beneath a sky growing steadily colder, stars glittering icily above dwindling fires, you quietly contemplate this terrifying crossroads. Paradise offered comfort, abundance, unprecedented luxury. But permanence carries hidden risks, dangers your ancestors never knew. Humanity now faces an urgent choice: wander once again, trusting ancient instincts, or stubbornly cling to permanence, risking everything to maintain settled lives painstakingly built over generations. Sleep finds you uneasily tonight, dreams shadowed by uncertainty. Your world teeters delicately upon the brink, permanence balanced precariously against survival itself. Tomorrow, difficult choices loom starkly. Yet tonight, wrapped warmly against gathering cold, rest gently, dreamer. Your story, humanity's story, remains unfinished, fragile yet resilient, forever shaped by decisions awaiting patiently beneath stars, quietly illuminating your struggling paradise. The bitter chill arrives swiftly and mercilessly, gripping your Natufian village with relentless, icy fingers. This sudden cold isn't just uncomfortable, it's terrifying. Crops wither overnight, animal herds vanish, leaving silent fields and empty hunting grounds behind. You stand quietly, breathing clouds of frost into pale morning air, suddenly aware that your comfortable world is breaking apart around you. Life's gentle rhythms, carefully built over generations, are collapsing beneath this rapid return to glacial harshness. Your community now faces a brutal truth. The ancient nomadic ways you abandoned might have provided flexibility in the face of this crisis, but you're no longer nomads. Your settled life, with its sturdy homes, permanent structures, and abundant harvests, has inadvertently trapped you. There is no easy retreat to wandering. You must quickly adapt or risk everything you've painstakingly built. And adapting requires something utterly unfamiliar, social structure beyond simple kinship ties. Larger communities demand organization, authority, someone capable of making difficult decisions. Your ancestors never needed complex hierarchies. Small family bands easily governed themselves. But here, amid scarcity and uncertainty, survival demands leadership, coordination, direction. Humanity's first real experiments with social power begin quietly, almost unnoticed, in desperate attempts to save settlements teetering on collapse. Walking thoughtfully through your struggling village, you notice subtle signs emerging. Certain individuals stand apart, their opinions increasingly respected. Perhaps elders whose experience grants wisdom, or charismatic hunters whose success earns admiration. In times of scarcity, villagers instinctively look toward someone for guidance. You realize you're glimpsing early leadership emerging naturally, authority based initially on merit, charisma, and capability. Yet this authority swiftly grows complicated. Walking near a burial site at the village edge, you notice something intriguing. Graves growing increasingly elaborate, adorned thoughtfully with shells, beads, rare items imported from distant places. Historians still argue whether these burials represent early chiefs or shamans, but clearly, certain individuals receive special reverence. Status is subtly changing from merit-based respect into hereditary authority. Early hints of power passing within families. Humanity's long struggle with social inequality has quietly begun. And with status emerges new forms of economy. You pause thoughtfully, examining necklaces carefully crafted from shells gathered hundreds of kilometers away, carved ivory figurines signaling personal distinction. These objects aren't mere decoration. They're symbols, markers of prestige. Owning exotic goods indicates connections, influence, the ability to obtain scarce resources. Villagers instinctively understand that status can now be purchased, traded, displayed openly. Humanity's first quiet experiment with wealth accumulation, economic disparity, and social hierarchy. Yet emerging leadership isn't merely about status, it's about necessity. Survival demands coordination, especially amid resource scarcity. You watch thoughtfully as village leaders debate near dwindling grain stores, carefully calculating distributions. Who decides who eats first? Or most? Who determines hunting priorities, planting schedules, defense against potential threats? Early leaders carry enormous responsibility. Success means village survival. Failure risks starvation. Power emerges naturally, quietly, not from greed but urgent necessity. Still, centralized power creates psychological tensions unfamiliar to your ancestors. Nomads once freely governed themselves, choosing their own paths daily. Now, survival depends increasingly upon community-wide decisions imposed from above. You sense quietly a growing tension, individual freedom sacrificed subtly for collective security. This bargain, central to civilization itself, begins quietly, painfully, amid these struggling Natufian villages. As you walk thoughtfully past huts, murmured arguments drift faintly outward. Some villagers bitterly dispute leaders' decisions, feeling restricted, controlled unfairly. Others willingly accept authority, recognizing necessity. These early tensions subtly foreshadow humanity's endless struggle between individual autonomy and communal stability, a tension still unresolved today. Yet even as you reflect quietly, recognizing power's challenges, something remarkable occurs nearby. A group gathers thoughtfully around a small platform, watching a village elder sketch rough symbols into soft clay, early attempts at tracking grain storage, animal herds, resource distributions. You're quietly witnessing the earliest hints of record-keeping, humanity's initial experiments with managing information systematically. Writing, mathematics, bureaucracy, concepts central to civilization's growth, begin softly, barely recognizable, amid urgent efforts to coordinate survival. And these innovations quietly ripple outward. You walk thoughtfully toward the village's edges, noticing newly constructed fences and walls marking territory clearly. Boundaries now define fields, hunting areas, grain storage, tools managing internal conflicts peacefully. Walls aren't simply defenses, they clarify rights, reduce friction, subtly reinforcing early leadership structures. Power isn't merely authority, it's managing relationships thoughtfully, preventing disputes before they erupt. Yet despite these quiet innovations, your struggling village remains fragile, vulnerable. Glancing outward, beyond settlement boundaries, you see smaller groups choosing differently, abandoning permanence entirely, reverting swiftly to nomadic wandering, trusting ancient instincts honed through countless generations. These groups travel lightly, following remaining animal herds, surviving precariously yet flexibly amid this catastrophic chill. You sense deeply their freedom, recognizing clearly the price your settlement pays for permanence. Still, something binds you stubbornly here. Perhaps it's generations spent investing in this settled life, or simply unwillingness to abandon hard-won comfort, security, stability. Whatever the reason, your choice, humanity's choice, to remain permanently anchored now forces unprecedented innovation, adaptation, risk-taking. Your settlement teeters delicately between desperate failure and historic triumph. Tonight, stars glittering icily above dwindling village fires, you sense deeply humanity's quiet crossroads. Permanence demands innovation, hierarchy, authority, even inequality, but offers extraordinary potential. Nomadic wandering offers freedom, flexibility, but denies security, abundance, civilization's eventual wonders. No path is clearly better. Each carries profound trade-offs. Yet standing quietly beneath tonight's frigid stars, you sense deeply your path is already chosen. Your ancestors wandered endlessly beneath boundless skies. You now anchor firmly in place, committed deeply despite uncertainty, risk, occasional hardship. You've chosen permanence, despite costs, complexities, inevitable compromises. It's a subtle yet powerful decision shaping humanity's entire future. Beneath stars glittering softly above your struggling village tonight, sleep finds you quietly, thoughtfully. Tomorrow brings urgent tasks, difficult decisions, uncertain survival. Yet tonight, wrapped warmly beneath blankets woven carefully by generations before you, rest easy, dreamer. Your journey, humanity's remarkable, beautiful, occasionally painful journey, remains unfinished, resilient, forever shaped by quiet choices made patiently, bravely beneath endless skies. Morning breaks bitterly cold, frost glittering harshly beneath pale sunlight. You shiver slightly, sensing deeply the profound shift gripping your world, this terrifyingly swift return to near glacial conditions that historians will someday name the Younger Dryas. It feels sudden, unexpected, cruelly unjust after so many generations of abundance and growth. Yet here it is, undeniable, unavoidable, an environmental catastrophe unfolding rapidly, collapsing your carefully constructed paradise into stark survival once more. Historians still argue over the precise trigger of this abrupt climate shift. Many now agree a massive pulse of meltwater from retreating North American glaciers surged suddenly into the Atlantic, disrupting ocean currents that had kept your world warm. Regardless of exact cause, the impact is painfully clear. Within mere decades, your land plunges dramatically into bitter cold. Rainfall disappears. Forests retreat swiftly. Fields of wild grain wither and die. The foundation of your Natufian society crumbles alarmingly fast. Your once thriving village becomes a shadow of its former self. Walking thoughtfully through empty pathways, you feel haunted by abandoned huts, hearths growing cold, fields lying barren and silent. Villagers vanish slowly, some fleeing southward, seeking warmer climates, others reverting swiftly to nomadic wandering, trusting ancient instincts honed through countless generations. Yet many stubbornly remain, anchored by generations of investment, hope, determination. They refuse to abandon this settled life without a fight. Yet staying demands desperate adaptation. You watch thoughtfully as village elders debate around dwindling grain stores, carefully rationing precious food reserves. Hunting parties return increasingly empty-handed, animal herds scattering southward. In desperation, you turn more urgently toward wild plants, grains still growing resiliently despite chill conditions. Without realizing it, humanity takes another quiet step toward agriculture, actively managing wild crops to survive bitter conditions. Moving through silent fields, you see villagers deliberately planting harvested seeds, watering carefully from nearby streams, actively clearing competing weeds. This isn't casual gathering. It's intentional, desperate cultivation. Seeds are carefully selected, stored thoughtfully for future harvests. The line between gathering and farming blurs quietly, forced by necessity, desperation, survival. Humanity's first conscious experiments with agriculture arise painfully, born not from abundance but urgent scarcity. Yet farming demands relentless, exhausting effort. You pause thoughtfully, watching villagers laboring tirelessly through cold mornings, carefully tending struggling crops. It's demanding work, uncertain outcomes always looming ominously. Yet survival itself now depends upon successful harvests. Settlements that choose permanence must invest everything: energy, hope, determination into these fragile plantings. You sense clearly that humanity has quietly crossed a profound threshold, binding its future inseparably to cultivated plants, deliberate agriculture, exhausting yet necessary labor. And as humans depend increasingly upon plants, plants become dependent subtly upon humans. You notice something intriguing. Wild grains gathered casually by nomads always dropped their seeds readily, scattering widely. But seeds from cultivated plants are subtly changing, their brittle structures becoming tougher, retaining seeds longer, awaiting deliberate harvest. Without realizing it, humans create evolutionary pressure, selecting subtly for plants suited best for cultivation. The quiet dance of domestication begins softly, subtly yet irreversibly. Still, this early farming remains desperately fragile. Late frosts, droughts, sudden pests threaten entire harvests. Survival always precariously balanced upon uncertain outcomes. Villagers suffer visibly, skeletons someday unearthed by archaeologists bearing unmistakable signs of nutritional stress, evidence of profound hardship, struggle, desperate attempts to survive bitter conditions. Yet humans cling stubbornly, determinedly, refusing to abandon their carefully built settlements, adapting painfully yet resourcefully to harsh new realities. Yet amid harsh conditions, remarkable innovations quietly emerge. You watch thoughtfully as villagers build small storage structures, stone-lined pits carefully sealed, preserving grain painstakingly harvested. Communal storage fosters cooperation, binding villagers tightly together through shared effort, survival depending entirely upon collective labor, mutual trust, joint dedication. Agriculture quietly transforms relationships, making communities tightly interdependent, survival impossible without unity. And this unity subtly reshapes social structures. Standing quietly near communal grain stores, you see village elders organizing labor, distributing food thoughtfully yet firmly. Central authority quietly strengthens, power emerging naturally from necessity, leadership no longer optional but urgently required. Humans adapt quickly, recognizing instinctively that organized, coordinated efforts ensure survival more effectively than fragmented individual attempts. Authority quietly, inevitably emerges from necessity itself. Yet centralized authority carries subtle psychological costs. Wandering thoughtfully, you notice murmured complaints. Villagers quietly resentful, feeling restricted, controlled unfairly. Freedom once cherished by nomadic ancestors feels constrained by imposed decisions, rigid schedules, collective obligations. You sense deeply this psychological tension, individual autonomy sacrificed quietly yet profoundly for collective security, stability, survival. It's a subtle yet powerful trade-off central to civilization itself. Still, despite psychological tensions, your settlement survives stubbornly, determinedly. Seasons turn slowly, each harvest slightly better managed, each winter endured through careful preparation, communal effort, shared sacrifice. Villagers learn painfully, yet effectively to manage harsh new realities, binding their lives inseparably to cultivated plants, community cooperation, central organization. And quietly, unnoticed at first, climate gradually begins warming again, bitter conditions slowly, cautiously relenting. Tonight, beneath stars glittering softly above your surviving village, you pause thoughtfully, reflecting upon this astonishing journey. Paradise collapsed suddenly into crisis, yet from desperation arose remarkable innovation, adaptation, humanity quietly pioneering agriculture, domestication, centralized leadership, communal cooperation. Your ancestors once wandered endlessly beneath boundless skies. You now anchor firmly in place, committed deeply despite hardship, struggle, uncertainty. You've chosen permanence despite costs, complexities, inevitable compromises. Sleep finds you thoughtfully tonight, dreams gently haunted by memories of paradise lost, struggles endured, lessons painfully learned. Your village has survived, resilient despite harsh conditions, quietly pioneering innovations shaping humanity's entire future. Tomorrow brings new seasons, fresh challenges, continued determination. Yet tonight, beneath endless stars, rest gently, dreamer. Your story, humanity's remarkable, resilient journey, remains beautifully unfinished, forever shaped by quiet choices made bravely beneath infinite skies. Slowly, softly, the bitter chill loosens its relentless grip on your world. Morning sunlight warms gently, frost melts reluctantly from rooftops, ice retreats cautiously from the edges of rivers and lakes. Your settlement emerges quietly, scarred yet resilient, from more than a millennium of harshness. The long, bitter centuries historians call the Younger Dryas finally ending. You stand thoughtfully, breathing deeply the fresh, hopeful scent of spring returning gently, hesitantly, after a very long winter. Your community has survived remarkably, yet changed profoundly. You're no longer simple gatherers and hunters. Your lives are intricately bound now to seeds planted deliberately, crops carefully cultivated, grain painstakingly harvested and stored. Permanence, painfully tested, has reshaped your lives deeply, irrevocably. You've quietly pioneered humanity's earliest agriculture, driven by necessity, desperation, determination to survive harsh conditions. Yet now, as climate warms again, these agricultural skills blossom suddenly, powerfully, reshaping your entire world. Harvests improve dramatically. Seeds selected carefully for cultivation thrive abundantly as conditions grow warmer, wetter, gentler. Within generations, your fields overflow astonishingly with barley, wheat, pulses, nourishing foods sustaining rapidly growing populations. Your ancestors once gathered plants casually, migrating freely. Now, agriculture allows massive population growth, surpluses supporting villages expanding swiftly, settlements flourishing vibrantly across warming landscapes. Historians name this remarkable period the Pre-Pottery Neolithic A, PPNA, a technical term masking astonishing transformation quietly unfolding beneath gentle spring skies. Standing thoughtfully near village edges, you see settlements blossoming dramatically, huts multiplying quickly, paths winding gracefully between expanding neighborhoods. Your world buzzes vibrantly, villages thriving, humanity rapidly multiplying, bound inseparably to cultivated crops, carefully managed harvests, deliberate agriculture. Yet this growth requires careful management. Moving thoughtfully through bustling village streets, you notice something intriguing. A large communal building, carefully constructed near settlement centers, walls thick, roof sturdy, built meticulously from stone and mud bricks. Stepping inside, you recognize immediately its purpose. A granary, carefully designed for communal food storage, grain harvested collectively, stored securely, distributed thoughtfully, fairly among villagers. This communal granary quietly embodies profound social shifts. Agriculture demands communal cooperation, fields planted, harvested collectively, survival dependent entirely upon shared effort. Grain storage fosters trust, binding villagers tightly together through mutual dependency. Each family contributes labor, receives food in return. An early, powerful social contract emerging subtly from necessity. Agriculture quietly reshapes human relationships, community cohesion becoming essential, survival impossible without shared effort, collective organization. Yet managing communal storage demands clear authority. Observing thoughtfully, you notice village elders organizing harvests, grain distributions, resource management. Authority emerging naturally, inevitably from practical necessity. Leadership becomes central, power subtly strengthening through coordination, administration, management of communal resources. Your ancestors governed themselves easily within small family bands. Now, authority becomes structured, formalized, central to settlement survival. And central authority subtly reshapes your spiritual lives. Wandering quietly toward village centers, you see villagers gathering near granaries, rituals performed thoughtfully, offerings made gently to spirits overseeing harvests, rainfall, agricultural success. Animism, your ancestors' spiritual worldview, subtly shifts. Spirits becoming organized, formalized, linked directly to agriculture, community prosperity. Religion quietly evolves, centralized spiritual practices mirroring centralized social structures. Yet farming demands precise timing, planting, harvesting governed strictly by seasonal rhythms. Observing thoughtfully, you notice villagers carefully tracking sun, moon, stars, learning precisely when seeds must be planted, harvested successfully. Without realizing it, you're quietly pioneering humanity's earliest calendars, astronomy emerging subtly, practically from agricultural necessity. Civilization's profound innovations, writing, mathematics, organized religion, begin softly, humbly, unnoticed within urgent agricultural demands. Walking thoughtfully toward village outskirts, you pause quietly near burial areas, noticing subtle shifts emerging there too. Ancestors are buried carefully beneath hut floors, remains becoming literal foundations beneath family homes. Ancestors present, intimately connected to living generations. Burial rituals subtly link past, present, future. Ancestral spirits intimately tied to land, fertility, agricultural success. Villagers quietly embrace deeper connection to land, permanence embodied profoundly within ancestral presence beneath homes themselves. Yet profound permanence demands new concepts. Property, land ownership subtly emerging as fields become valuable, essential resources carefully cultivated, fiercely protected. Observing thoughtfully, you see fences, simple walls marking boundaries, territories defined clearly, disputes resolved through emerging communal authority structures. Civilization's central concepts, property rights, territorial boundaries, law, quietly arise, not through conflict, but pragmatic necessity, peaceful management of resources essential for survival. Historians still argue whether agricultural permanence emerged naturally from environmental bounty or desperate scarcity. Perhaps it was both, each reinforcing quietly. Yet clearly, humanity has crossed profoundly into agricultural life, bound deeply, irrevocably to cultivated crops, communal effort, central authority structures essential for managing growing populations, complex societies emerging vibrantly beneath warming skies. Tonight, beneath gentle stars, you reflect quietly upon humanity's astonishing journey. Your ancestors wandered endlessly beneath infinite horizons, yet permanence now anchors you profoundly, shaping lives deeply through deliberate agriculture, communal cooperation, structured authority. Tomorrow brings fresh seasons, new challenges, continued adaptation. Yet tonight, beneath gentle skies, rest gently, dreamer. Your journey remains beautifully unfinished, resilient, forever shaped by quiet choices made bravely beneath infinite, hopeful stars. Sunrise breaks warmly, gilding the horizon in shades of honey and amber. You stand quietly at the edge of your bustling village, breathing deeply the scent of wildflowers and freshly turned soil. The Younger Dryas, the bitter centuries of chill and struggle, now lies quietly behind you, fading into memory, replaced by something astonishingly vibrant. This gentle warmth marks humanity's true rebirth, a flourishing world built deliberately, painstakingly, through careful cultivation and collective effort. You watch thoughtfully as villagers gather tools, heading purposefully into lush fields. The experimental farming techniques born from desperate survival have blossomed dramatically, turning modest harvests into astonishing abundance. Fields of barley and wheat ripple golden beneath gentle breezes, pulses and legumes flourish richly, nourished carefully by attentive human hands. Agriculture, once merely a desperate attempt to stave off starvation, has become humanity's defining way of life. Historians call this era the pre-pottery Neolithic A, though for you, it's simply life blossoming beautifully beneath gentle skies. Villages expand rapidly, populations swell dramatically, surpluses supporting vibrant communities thriving effortlessly. Permanence, once painfully challenging, now feels comfortably natural, your world humming gently, effortlessly, in rhythms defined by planting, harvesting, communal effort. Wandering thoughtfully through bustling village streets, you pause near a remarkable new structure. Villagers carefully construct large, sturdy buildings at the settlement's heart, granaries meticulously crafted from mud brick, stone, and timber. Stepping inside, you see carefully stacked baskets overflowing with grain, safely stored, secured collectively. This granary isn't merely practical storage, it symbolizes humanity's quiet yet profound transformation. Agriculture demands communal cooperation. You watch villagers bringing harvested grain, sharing labor willingly, knowing survival depends entirely upon collective effort. Grain stored communally fosters deep trust, binding families tightly together through mutual dependency, shared prosperity, communal responsibility. It's a subtle yet powerful social contract, quietly reshaping human relationships, making survival impossible without unity, collaboration, structured community life. Yet communal life demands careful management. Observing thoughtfully, you notice village elders quietly overseeing distributions, organizing labor, settling disputes gently yet firmly. Authority emerges naturally, inevitably, from practical necessity. Your ancestors once governed themselves easily, freedom absolute. Now, structured leadership quietly guides community effort, ensuring smooth harvests, fair distributions, peaceful cooperation. Leadership feels new, slightly uncomfortable, yet essential for flourishing communities thriving beneath gentle skies. And centralized authority subtly reshapes your spiritual world. Wandering quietly toward granaries, you witness villagers performing rituals, making offerings gently to spirits, governing rain, fertility, successful harvests. Animism, your ancestors' intuitive spirituality, subtly shifts. Spirits becoming structured, formalized, intimately tied to agriculture, communal prosperity. Religion quietly evolves. Centralized spiritual practices mirroring social authority structures essential for agricultural life. Yet farming demands precise timing, planting, harvesting governed strictly by seasonal rhythms. Observing thoughtfully, you notice villagers tracking sun, moon, stars carefully, learning precisely when to plant, harvest successfully. Without realizing it, you're quietly pioneering humanity's earliest calendars, astronomy emerging subtly, practically, from agricultural necessity. Civilization's profound innovations, writing, mathematics, organized religion, begin softly, humbly, unnoticed within urgent agricultural demands. Walking thoughtfully toward village outskirts, you pause quietly near burial areas, noticing subtle shifts emerging there too. Ancestors are buried carefully beneath hut floors, remains becoming literal foundations beneath family homes. Ancestors present, intimately connected to living generations. Burial rituals subtly link past, present, future. Ancestral spirits intimately tied to land, fertility, agricultural success. Villagers quietly embrace deeper connection to land. Permanence embodied profoundly within ancestral presence beneath homes themselves. Yet profound permanence demands new concepts. Property, land ownership subtly emerging as fields become valuable, essential resources carefully cultivated, fiercely protected. Observing thoughtfully, you see fences, simple walls marking boundaries, territories defined clearly, disputes resolved through emerging communal authority structures. Civilization's central concepts, property rights, territorial boundaries, law, quietly arise, not through conflict, but pragmatic necessity. Peaceful management of resources essential for survival. Historians still argue whether agricultural permanence emerged naturally from environmental bounty or desperate scarcity, perhaps both, reinforcing quietly. Yet clearly, humanity has crossed profoundly into agricultural life, bound deeply, irrevocably to cultivated crops, communal effort, central authority structures, essential for managing growing populations, complex societies emerging vibrantly beneath warming skies. Tonight, beneath gentle stars, you reflect quietly upon humanity's astonishing journey. Your ancestors wandered endlessly beneath infinite horizons, yet permanence now anchors you profoundly, shaping lives deeply through deliberate agriculture, communal cooperation, structured authority. Tomorrow brings fresh seasons, new challenges, continued adaptation. Yet tonight, beneath gentle skies, rest gently, dreamer. Your journey remains beautifully unfinished, resilient, forever shaped by quiet choices made bravely beneath infinite, hopeful stars. You rise gently in the pre-dawn darkness, breathing deeply the cool, quiet air, heavy with anticipation. Around you, your village hums softly, families stirring in huts, whispers exchanged warmly as the villagers prepare thoughtfully for the day ahead. Today is special, marked quietly upon calendars tracked meticulously by observing moon phases, sun positions, seasonal shifts. You've awoken on the morning of the great harvest, the culmination of months of careful planting, tending, hoping, waiting. Stepping softly into morning twilight, you walk thoughtfully toward village fields, guided gently by pale starlight. Around you, villagers gather silently, carrying baskets, sickles polished brightly from careful preparation. You sense deeply the quiet reverence surrounding this moment. More than mere practicality, this harvest embodies profound spiritual meaning. Agriculture isn't merely planting and gathering. It's sacred communion with spirits governing rainfall, fertility, prosperity itself. Historians still debate precisely how early spiritual rituals connected with agriculture developed. Perhaps organically, intuitively, humans naturally seeking meaning within seasonal rhythms. Yet clearly, farming transformed spirituality profoundly, spirits becoming structured, formalized, tied intimately to agricultural cycles, community survival dependent upon successful harvests. Animism quietly evolved, rituals shifting subtly, becoming collective ceremonies, uniting villages profoundly through shared reverence, communal gratitude. You pause thoughtfully at field edges, observing villagers gently gathering ripe grain, careful, rhythmic strokes of sickles harvesting nourishing barley and wheat. Villagers softly murmur prayers, gratitude whispered gently to spirits, ancestors remembered lovingly, their presence deeply felt through communal rituals, binding past generations intimately to present. Agriculture subtly reshapes human spirituality, ancestors becoming guardian spirits intimately tied to land itself. Yet agricultural spirituality demands precise timing, planting, harvesting carefully synchronized with celestial rhythms. Observing thoughtfully, you recall villagers meticulously tracking moon phases, sun positions, star alignments, learning precisely when seeds must be planted, harvested successfully. Without realizing it, humanity quietly pioneers earliest calendars, astronomy emerging practically, softly, humbly, from agricultural necessity itself. Civilization's profound innovations, writing, mathematics, organized religion, begin quietly, unnoticed within urgent agricultural demands. Wandering gently toward village centers, you see communal granaries decorated thoughtfully, woven wreaths of grasses and flowers adorning sturdy doors. Stepping quietly inside, you observe villagers carefully placing harvested grain into storage baskets, offerings thoughtfully arranged, rituals performed gently, collectively within granary walls. These practical structures subtly transform into spiritual spaces, granaries becoming communal sanctuaries, sacred symbols of community prosperity, ancestral connection, spiritual reverence. Yet spiritual life now includes something new, subtly profound. Ritual feasting, communal celebrations emerging naturally around successful harvests. Observing thoughtfully, you see villagers gathering warmly near hearth fires, food prepared lovingly, carefully cooked grains, roasted meats, fermented beverages shared joyfully. Humanity quietly discovers another profound truth. Shared meals foster community deeply. Ritual feasting binding families tightly together through gratitude, celebration, communal identity. You pause softly near communal hearths, observing quietly as villagers share a sweet, fermented beverage. Early beer brewed carefully from harvested grain. Historians still debate whether beer was discovered accidentally or intentionally brewed for ritual purposes, yet clearly it became central to communal life, Celebrations enhanced gently through shared drink, village unity strengthened deeply through ritual feasting, gratitude collectively expressed. Yet communal life demands careful organization. Observing thoughtfully, you notice village elders quietly overseeing feasts, managing grain distributions, organizing communal labor, spiritual rituals carefully structured around agricultural cycles. Authority emerges subtly, naturally, from practical necessity, leadership becoming essential, ensuring smooth harvests, fair resource management, peaceful cooperation. Authority subtly strengthens through coordinating communal rituals, spiritual ceremonies, binding villagers tightly together through shared reverence, collective gratitude, unified purpose. And central authority subtly reshapes human relationships, property concepts quietly emerging as agricultural land becomes valuable, resources carefully cultivated, fiercely protected. Observing thoughtfully, you see fences, simple walls marking field boundaries, territories defined clearly, disputes resolved through emerging authority structures. Civilization's central concepts, property rights, territorial boundaries, law, quietly arise, not through conflict, but pragmatic necessity, peaceful management of resources essential for survival. Tonight, beneath gentle stars glittering softly above your celebrating village, you pause quietly, reflecting thoughtfully upon humanity's astonishing journey. Agriculture transformed your world profoundly, reshaping spirituality, community life, human relationships subtly yet irreversibly. Tomorrow brings fresh seasons, new challenges, continued adaptation. Yet tonight, beneath infinite skies, rest gently, dreamer. Your journey remains beautifully unfinished, resilient, forever shaped by quiet choices made bravely beneath infinite, hopeful stars. Standing quietly beneath the rising sun, you gaze out across a landscape forever transformed. Before you sprawls the remarkable town of Jericho, humanity's earliest true marvel of organized settlement and engineering ambition. Your quiet village life has evolved dramatically into something far grander, far more complex than your ancestors could ever have imagined. You're witnessing civilization quietly blossoming into its earliest astonishing forms. Walking thoughtfully toward Jericho's edge, you're immediately struck by a monumental construction. An enormous wall built meticulously from carefully quarried stones, stacked layer upon layer to impressive heights. The wall is massive, nearly 5 meters high and 2 meters thick, encircling the entire town, a remarkable feat of engineering quietly undertaken by generations laboring patiently beneath blazing sun and pale moonlight. Yet walls aren't the only marvel here. Approaching carefully, you notice a towering stone structure attached thoughtfully to Jericho's great wall. A massive circular tower nearly 8 meters high, solidly built from stones carefully fitted, an internal staircase winding gracefully upward. You pause quietly, gazing upward in awe, realizing this is humanity's earliest known monumental architecture, built painstakingly, patiently, requiring astonishing coordination, labor, authority to organize countless villages working collectively over generations. Yet historians still debate the precise purpose behind Jericho's monumental wall and tower. Initially, many assumed defense against outsiders, raiders or hostile neighboring communities. But archaeological evidence reveals surprisingly little evidence of widespread warfare during this period. Some now suggest the wall was a practical measure, protecting against seasonal floods threatening villages built upon low-lying plains. Others propose entirely different motivations: symbolic, spiritual, community identity, perhaps inspiring construction far more than practical necessity alone. Yet whatever its original intent, the wall undeniably represents profound innovation in social organization. You pause thoughtfully, imagining carefully organized labor teams quarrying stones, transporting massive blocks, stacking carefully layer upon layer under guidance from respected elders or emerging authority figures. The wall quietly reveals something deeply important. Your simple village society has evolved profoundly, authority subtly strengthening, becoming essential for managing large-scale projects, communal efforts impossible without centralized coordination, structured leadership, social hierarchy quietly emerging. And centralized authority subtly reshapes spiritual life. Wandering thoughtfully toward Jericho's town center, you observe villagers gathering carefully near monumental structures, rituals performed thoughtfully, offerings gently arranged beneath towering walls and the imposing stone tower. Animism quietly evolves, spirits becoming structured, formalized, intimately tied to communal prosperity, agricultural success, monumental construction symbolizing community strength, ancestral pride, spiritual reverence deeply intertwined with centralized authority and communal identity. Yet building monumental structures demands careful resource management. Observing thoughtfully, you notice large communal granaries constructed carefully near Jericho's town center, grain harvested collectively, stored securely, distributed thoughtfully among villagers laboring patiently upon ambitious projects. Communal storage fosters deep trust, binding families tightly together through mutual dependency, shared prosperity, communal responsibility. Agriculture subtly reshapes human relationships, making survival impossible without unity, collaboration, structured community life, quietly underpinning ambitious communal construction. Yet ambitious communal projects demand significant labor commitments from villagers, individual freedom sacrificed quietly, yet profoundly for collective goals. Wandering thoughtfully through bustling streets, you overhear villagers murmuring softly, some resentful of imposed obligations, others willingly accepting sacrifices necessary for communal success, shared prosperity. You sense deeply humanity's earliest subtle tensions emerging quietly between individual autonomy and communal obligation. Civilization's central balancing act, beginning gently, thoughtfully, beneath Jericho's monumental walls. And as community life grows increasingly complex, new social structures emerge quietly, yet unmistakably. Pausing thoughtfully near Jericho's burial areas, you notice graves growing increasingly elaborate, certain individuals honored lovingly with rare adornments, exotic goods imported carefully from distant places. Status subtly evolves from merit-based respect into hereditary authority, power beginning quietly to pass within families, social hierarchies emerging gently yet profoundly beneath Jericho's monumental constructions. Yet beneath quiet tensions, Jericho thrives astonishingly, vibrant community flourishing powerfully beneath warming skies. Monumental structures inspire awe, pride, collective identity deeply woven into communal effort, centralized authority, spiritual reverence. Walls aren't merely practical constructions, they symbolize communal strength, ancestral pride, spiritual identity binding villagers tightly together through collective memory, shared labor, unified purpose. Tonight, Beneath gentle stars glittering softly above Jericho's monumental walls, you pause quietly, reflecting thoughtfully upon humanity's astonishing journey. Your ancestors wandered endlessly beneath infinite horizons, yet now permanence anchors you profoundly, shaping lives deeply through deliberate agriculture, communal cooperation, monumental ambition, structured authority. Tomorrow brings fresh seasons, new challenges, continued adaptation. Yet tonight, beneath gentle skies, rest gently, dreamer. Your journey remains beautifully unfinished, resilient, forever shaped by quiet choices made bravely beneath infinite, hopeful stars. Standing quietly in the shadow of Jericho's towering walls, you begin to sense these monumental structures aren't merely feats of stone and labor. They're powerful symbols, speaking subtly yet profoundly about human psychology, social identity, and the delicate balance between freedom and security. Your village ancestors wandered freely beneath endless skies. Now, walls carefully encircle your community, defining clearly what lies within and beyond, subtly reshaping how you perceive the world itself. You walk thoughtfully along Jericho's great wall, fingers brushing gently across stones carefully placed by generations before you. These walls aren't merely defenses against external threats. They shape profoundly your sense of belonging, defining clearly an us and them, subtly reinforcing community identity, collective memory, shared pride. Walls quietly symbolize security, stability, permanence itself. Powerful psychological tools managing internal relationships as much as external threats. Historians still argue precisely why Jericho's monumental walls were built, but many increasingly suggest symbolic motivations outweighed practical necessity. Observing thoughtfully, you see few signs of active warfare during this period, no clear evidence of hostile attacks necessitating such enormous defensive constructions. Perhaps these walls arose more from communal ambition, spiritual reverence, collective identity inspiring villagers toward monumental achievement, powerful symbols proclaiming confidently, "We are Jericho, we are here to stay." You pause quietly beneath Jericho's imposing stone tower, noticing thoughtfully how its alignment subtly mirrors celestial rhythms. The setting sun on summer solstice shining gently upon its carefully shaped stones. Perhaps this tower served symbolic purposes, a ritual center carefully linking earth and sky, community and spirits, ancestors, and living generations. You sense deeply humanity's earliest profound attempts to understand the universe itself. Cosmic order reflected subtly within monumental architecture, spirituality intimately tied to collective identity, communal memory, ancestral pride. Yet monumental walls profoundly reshape community psychology, subtly balancing individual freedom against collective security. Observing thoughtfully, you notice villagers moving freely within walls, yet hesitating slightly at boundaries clearly defined. Landscapes once freely roamed, now subtly restricted by invisible lines marking community edges, territorial limits, property concepts quietly arising from practical necessity. Walls subtly remind villagers their security depends entirely upon communal cooperation. Individual freedom gently yet profoundly sacrificed for collective stability. And communal security demands structured authority. Wandering thoughtfully through Jericho's streets, you observe village elders quietly organizing communal labor, managing resource distribution, settling disputes gently yet firmly. Leadership subtly strengthens through organizing ambitious communal projects, monumental construction impossible without clear central authority coordinating countless villagers laboring patiently beneath blazing sun and pale moonlight. Authority quietly emerges naturally, inevitably, from practical necessity itself. Yet centralized authority carries subtle psychological tensions. Pausing thoughtfully near granaries, you overhear villagers murmuring softly, some quietly resentful of imposed obligations, others willingly accepting sacrifices necessary for collective success, shared prosperity. You sense deeply humanity's earliest subtle tensions emerging quietly between individual autonomy and communal obligation. Civilization's central balancing act beginning gently beneath Jericho's monumental walls. Still, despite subtle tensions, Jericho thrives astonishingly. Monumental architecture inspires awe, pride, collective identity deeply woven into communal effort, structured authority, spiritual reverence. Walls aren't merely practical constructions. They symbolize communal strength, ancestral pride, spiritual identity binding villagers tightly together through collective memory, shared labor, unified purpose. Jericho quietly pioneers civilization's earliest forms, authority structures essential for managing large populations, ambitious communal projects impossible without coordinated effort. Central leadership subtly yet profoundly reshaping human relationships. And beneath monumental walls, new forms of social complexity quietly emerge. Observing thoughtfully near burial areas, you notice graves growing increasingly elaborate. Certain individuals honored lovingly with rare adornments, exotic goods imported carefully from distant places. Status subtly evolves from merit-based respect into hereditary authority, power beginning quietly to pass within families, social hierarchies emerging gently yet profoundly beneath Jericho's monumental constructions. Yet Jericho's vibrant community continues thriving powerfully beneath warming skies. Monumental structures inspire awe, pride, collective identity deeply woven into communal effort, structured authority, spiritual reverence. Walls aren't merely practical constructions. They symbolize communal strength, ancestral pride, spiritual identity binding villagers tightly together through collective memory, shared labor, unified purpose. Tonight, beneath gentle stars glittering softly above Jericho's monumental walls, you pause quietly, reflecting thoughtfully upon humanity's astonishing journey. Your ancestors wandered endlessly beneath infinite horizons, yet now permanence anchors you profoundly, shaping lives deeply through deliberate agriculture, communal cooperation, monumental ambition, structured authority. Tomorrow brings fresh seasons, new challenges, continued adaptation. Yet tonight, beneath gentle skies, rest gently, dreamer. Your journey remains beautifully unfinished, resilient, forever shaped by quiet choices made bravely beneath infinite, hopeful stars. Just as you think you've unraveled civilization's earliest secrets, permanent settlements, agriculture, monumental walls, you stumble upon something extraordinary, something utterly unexpected that quietly turns history upside down. Leaving behind the thriving town of Jericho, you journey northward across vast, rolling plains, eventually arriving at a windswept hilltop in southeastern Anatolia. Göbekli Tepe, a mysterious place historians will someday call humanity's earliest cathedral. Pausing thoughtfully atop this gentle hill, you gaze quietly across a landscape seemingly untouched by civilization. Yet beneath your feet lies something astonishing. A vast artificial mound, carefully constructed by countless hands laboring patiently over generations. Approaching carefully, you notice enormous circular enclosures built meticulously from massive limestone pillars towering dramatically upward. Some pillars weighing over 8 metric tons, each carved painstakingly, carefully placed within intricately designed stone circles. Yet historians are shocked when they date Göbekli Tepe's earliest layers. They discover this monumental architecture arose around 9600 BC, precisely contemporary with humanity's earliest farming settlements. But here's the astonishing twist. Careful archaeological analysis reveals no evidence of settled village life at Göbekli Tepe. No permanent houses, domestic hearths, or cultivated grains. Animal bones unearthed here belong exclusively to wild species, gazelle, aurochs, wild boar, plants gathered casually rather than deliberately cultivated. You pause quietly, contemplating this historical paradox. Göbekli Tepe was built not by settled farming communities, but by nomadic hunter-gatherers, bands wandering freely yet mysteriously organizing monumental construction previously thought impossible without agricultural surpluses, permanent settlements, structured hierarchies. Historians still debate fiercely how scattered nomadic bands managed such astonishing coordination. Logistical planning, monumental ambition seemingly impossible without structured social complexity. Yet clearly, Göbekli Tepe challenges profoundly assumptions about civilization's earliest roots. Wandering thoughtfully through towering limestone pillars, you notice extraordinary carvings. Animals rendered exquisitely, gazelles leaping gracefully, vultures soaring dramatically, lions stalking silently, snakes slithering ominously. Carvings portray vividly a wild, powerful, natural world, intimately familiar to hunter-gatherers, spirits perhaps revered, ancestors remembered, symbols deeply woven into collective memory, shared spirituality, nomadic identity. And scholars have begun suggesting something astonishing. Perhaps Göbekli Tepe served primarily spiritual purposes, a sacred gathering place attracting nomadic bands from across vast regions, pilgrims journeying thoughtfully to participate in communal rituals, feasting, monumental construction itself profoundly symbolic of collective identity, ancestral reverence, spiritual beliefs intimately tied to powerful forces governing nomadic life itself. Yet monumental construction demands enormous logistical coordination. Hundreds of nomadic individuals laboring collectively require substantial food supplies, communal feasting supporting prolonged communal effort. Animal bones unearthed at Göbekli Tepe reveal enormous communal feasts. Gazelles, aurochs roasted carefully, meat shared communally among participants laboring patiently beneath blazing sun and pale moonlight. Ritual feasting perhaps became powerful social glue, binding nomadic bands tightly together through shared experience, collective identity, ancestral memory, spiritual reverence. And scholars have recently proposed an astonishing theory. Perhaps these enormous logistical demands prompted earliest experiments with deliberate plant cultivation. Nomadic bands organizing monumental construction required substantial food supplies, grains harvested systematically, wild plants managed carefully, cultivation arising practically from logistical necessity itself. Perhaps Göbekli Tepe's monumental ambition subtly nudged humanity toward agriculture, domestication arising practically from spiritual motivations, collective ambition, logistical coordination necessary for monumental communal construction. You pause quietly, contemplating thoughtfully humanity's earliest history now seemingly reversed. Perhaps civilization's earliest monumental constructions arose not from agricultural surpluses enabling ambitious communal effort, but rather ambitious communal effort itself, prompting earliest experiments with deliberate plant cultivation, agriculture emerging practically from monumental spiritual ambition, collective identity, ancestral reverence. Yet whatever Göbekli Tepe's precise motivations, clearly it represents profound innovation in human organization. Social complexity emerging subtly yet powerfully among nomadic hunter-gatherers previously assumed incapable of monumental ambition, structured coordination. Wandering thoughtfully among towering limestone pillars, you sense deeply humanity's earliest subtle tensions emerging quietly between nomadic freedom and structured communal life. Spiritual reverence profoundly shaping collective identity, ancestral memory inspiring monumental ambition, logistical coordination quietly reshaping human relationships, collective effort subtly yet profoundly transforming nomadic life itself. Tonight, beneath gentle stars glittering softly above Göbekli Tepe's mysterious hilltop, you pause quietly, reflecting thoughtfully upon humanity's astonishing journey. Your ancestors wandered endlessly beneath infinite horizons, yet now, monumental ambition subtly reshapes human relationships, spiritual reverence profoundly inspiring collective effort, structured coordination quietly emerging even among nomadic hunter-gatherers. Tomorrow brings fresh discoveries, continued exploration. Yet tonight, beneath infinite skies, rest gently, dreamer. Your journey remains beautifully unfinished, resilient, forever shaped by quiet choices made bravely beneath infinite, hopeful stars. Standing quietly beneath Göbekli Tepe's towering limestone pillars, you trace your fingers gently along ancient carvings, etched deeply into stone, images rendered lovingly, vividly, by nomadic hands thousands of years before. You sense immediately these carvings aren't mere decoration. They speak powerfully, profoundly about humanity's earliest spiritual beliefs, collective identity, ancestral memory, subtly yet permanently embedded within monumental architecture itself. Pausing thoughtfully, you observe astonishingly vivid carvings, gazelles leaping gracefully, vultures soaring dramatically, lions stalking silently, scorpions poised menacingly, snakes coiled ominously. These powerful animals represented deeply meaningful symbols intimately familiar to nomadic hunter-gatherers. Spirits perhaps revered, ancestral guides remembered lovingly, powerful natural forces shaping nomadic life itself. Göbekli Tepe's carvings vividly portray a spiritual worldview deeply connected to nature, nomadic identity profoundly intertwined with powerful forces governing human survival itself. Yet something subtly profound appears within these carvings. Towering T-shaped limestone pillars themselves represent stylized human figures, each carefully carved with arms extending downward, fingers clasped neatly, loincloths delicately etched. You pause quietly, sensing deeply these monumental stone figures, perhaps representing ancestors, revered elders remembered lovingly, guardians guiding nomadic bands patiently beneath blazing sun and pale moonlight. Historians still debate precisely what Göbekli Tepe's stylized human pillars represented. Perhaps ancestral spirits revered, spiritual beings worshipped thoughtfully, humans themselves subtly immortalized within monumental architecture, collective identity profoundly embedded within communal memory, Ancestral reverence subtly yet powerfully shaping earliest spiritual beliefs. Yet clearly, Göbekli Tepe served profoundly spiritual purposes. A sacred gathering place attracting nomadic bands journeying thoughtfully from across vast regions. Pilgrims participating willingly in communal rituals. Ancestral reverence expressed profoundly through monumental construction itself. Rituals intimately tying living generations to revered ancestors. Powerful spiritual forces governing nomadic life itself. And spiritual reverence demands communal participation. Wandering thoughtfully through circular enclosures, you sense deeply powerful communal rituals performed carefully beneath monumental pillars, offerings gently arranged, ancestral spirits remembered lovingly through shared reverence. Collective participation powerfully reinforcing communal identity. Spiritual beliefs profoundly shaping earliest human communities. Yet communal rituals demand substantial logistical coordination. Nomadic bands journeying thoughtfully required significant food supplies, communal feasting supporting prolonged participation. Observing thoughtfully, you recall enormous communal feasts held carefully beneath Göbekli Tepe's monumental pillars. Gazelles, aurochs roasted lovingly, meat shared communally among participants laboring patiently beneath blazing sun and pale moonlight. Ritual feasting perhaps became powerful social glue, binding nomadic bands tightly together through shared experience, collective identity, ancestral memory, spiritual reverence itself. And these enormous logistical demands perhaps subtly nudged humanity toward earliest experiments with deliberate plant cultivation. Nomadic bands organizing monumental rituals required substantial food supplies, grains harvested systematically, wild plants managed carefully, earliest cultivation arising practically from logistical necessity itself. Perhaps Göbekli Tepe's spiritual reverence profoundly shaped humanity's earliest experiments with agriculture, domestication arising practically from monumental communal ambition itself. Yet clearly, Göbekli Tepe profoundly reshapes understanding about civilization's earliest roots, monumental architecture, structured communal rituals, spiritual reverence arising subtly yet powerfully among nomadic hunter-gatherers previously assumed incapable of organized ambition, structured coordination. Wandering thoughtfully among towering limestone pillars, you sense deeply humanity's earliest profound spiritual beliefs, subtly yet permanently embedded within communal memory. Ancestral reverence profoundly inspiring collective effort, structured coordination, quietly reshaping human relationships, spiritual reverence powerfully shaping nomadic life itself. Tonight, beneath gentle stars glittering softly above Göbekli Tepe's monumental pillars, you pause quietly, reflecting thoughtfully upon humanity's astonishing journey. Your ancestors wandered endlessly beneath infinite horizons, yet now, spiritual reverence subtly reshapes human relationships, ancestral memory profoundly inspiring monumental communal ambition, structured coordination quietly emerging even among nomadic hunter-gatherers. Tomorrow brings fresh discoveries, continued exploration, yet tonight, beneath infinite skies, rest gently, dreamer. Your journey remains beautifully unfinished, resilient, forever shaped by quiet choices made bravely beneath infinite, hopeful stars. Standing quietly beneath a sky brimming gently with stars, you look back thoughtfully across the incredible journey humanity has traveled. One that began over 10,000 years ago, beneath unfamiliar constellations on a vast frozen steppe. You began as a humble wanderer, living lightly upon the earth, moving gracefully through landscapes shaped only by ice, wind, and time. Yet tonight, beneath stars that once guided nomadic ancestors, you realize profoundly just how much your world has transformed. Agriculture, the quiet miracle born from desperation and necessity, has reshaped your relationship to the earth itself. Seeds once casually gathered became deliberately planted, cultivated, selected carefully, patiently. You've subtly reshaped wild grasses into nourishing crops, grains now entirely dependent upon your care, human intervention permanently embedded within their genetic structure. Your ancestors once wandered freely beneath infinite horizons. Now your future, your survival, depends entirely upon careful cultivation, deliberate agriculture, structured communal life itself. Historians still debate precisely how and why agriculture emerged, whether from abundance or scarcity, spiritual ambition or practical necessity. Perhaps all played quiet roles, each subtly reinforcing others, humanity gently yet profoundly reshaping wild plants, communal relationships, spiritual beliefs through deliberate agriculture. Yet clearly, agriculture has profoundly reshaped your world, supporting vibrant populations, stable communities, monumental ambition, impossible without agricultural surpluses, enabling structured communal life itself. Yet agriculture demands permanence, binding humans tightly to specific landscapes, cultivated fields, settled communities. Pausing thoughtfully, you realize permanence subtly reshapes human relationships. Individual freedom, gently sacrificed for collective stability, communal prosperity. Agriculture quietly requires structured authority, leadership organizing communal labor, resource management, territorial boundaries, subtly yet profoundly redefining human interactions, property concepts quietly emerging from practical necessity itself. And with permanence, humans began gently domesticating animals, goats, sheep, cattle subtly brought within community boundaries, selected carefully for docility, productivity, companionship itself. Animals once hunted freely became intimately connected to human life, dependent entirely upon your care, subtly reshaping human diets, relationships, even spiritual beliefs, profoundly shaped by domesticated companions, gently enriching communal life itself. Tonight, beneath stars gently glittering above your vibrant community, you sense deeply humanity's quiet yet profound transformation. Permanence subtly reshapes spirituality, ancestral reverence profoundly embedded within settled communities. Ancestors buried thoughtfully beneath family homes, remains becoming literal foundations beneath living generations. Spiritual beliefs profoundly tied to land, permanence, communal prosperity itself. Yet permanence carries subtle shadows, resource depletion, social hierarchies, inequalities emerging gently yet profoundly beneath communal prosperity, structured authority subtly reshaping human relationships, individual freedom gently yet profoundly sacrificed for collective stability. You sense deeply civilization's earliest subtle tensions quietly emerging between individual autonomy and communal obligation. Tensions still unresolved thousands of years later. Tonight, beneath infinite stars guiding humanity's endless journey, you sense deeply your future shaped profoundly by permanence itself. Agriculture supports vibrant populations, stable communities, monumental ambitions, impossible without agricultural surpluses, enabling structured communal life. Yet agriculture binds humans tightly to specific landscapes. Communal prosperity subtly balanced against individual freedom, structured authority essential yet carrying subtle psychological costs, still felt deeply within human communities today. Yet despite subtle tensions, humanity's journey remains beautifully unfinished, resilient, forever shaped by quiet choices made bravely beneath infinite, hopeful stars. Your ancestors wandered endlessly beneath infinite horizons, yet now permanence anchors you profoundly, shaping lives deeply through deliberate agriculture, communal cooperation, structured authority, spiritual reverence, profoundly shaping collective identity, ancestral memory, permanently embedded within vibrant communities, thriving gently beneath warming skies. Tonight, as stars gently illuminate fields ripening quietly beneath gentle breezes, you pause thoughtfully, sensing deeply humanity's quiet yet profound transformation. Your journey remains beautifully unfinished, resilient, forever shaped by quiet choices made bravely beneath infinite, hopeful stars. Rest gently, dreamer. Your story continues, quietly resilient, shaped profoundly by decisions made thoughtfully beneath endless skies. Now, let's slow our pace, soften our thoughts, and gently ease into our journey's final moments together. Tonight, you've journeyed softly through millennia, witnessing humanity gently yet profoundly reshaped by agriculture, permanence, communal life itself. Now, beneath stars softly illuminating fields quietly ripening beneath gentle breezes, allow your mind to wander gently, softly reflecting upon humanity's quiet journey, shaped profoundly by subtle choices, quiet resilience, hopeful dreams whispered gently beneath infinite skies. Your journey began beneath unfamiliar stars on a vast, frozen steppe, now ends gently beneath familiar constellations, illuminating fields, communities thriving quietly beneath warming skies. Allow gentle thoughts of permanence, agriculture, communal life softly reshaping human relationships, spirituality, identity itself. Your ancestors wandered freely beneath infinite horizons, yet now permanence anchors you profoundly, shaping lives deeply through deliberate agriculture, communal cooperation, structured authority, ancestral reverence subtly embedded within vibrant communities. Tonight, beneath infinite stars gently illuminating quiet fields, communities thriving patiently beneath warming skies, rest gently, dreamer. Your journey remains beautifully unfinished, resilient, forever shaped by quiet choices made bravely beneath infinite, hopeful stars. Sweet dreams.